Okay, this is gonna be my recording spot from now on. I'm just gonna be recording from here. Hey guys, it's been a while since I recorded this kind of videos because, well, life happens. Nothing bad happened, to be honest. Nothing really bad happened. It's just, things have calmed down much better compared to other times. So I think now is a really good time to catch up on things and review some things to talk about. But it's just crazy because just 2 years ago I was behind this similar camera. It's actually the same camera, and trying to conquer my fear of presenting my thoughts and being a little bit vulnerable in the sense that you have to lay out your thought on a video format like this. And it was definitely a good experience for me in the sense that I was able to express my ideas freely and in fact revisit these thoughts at a much more scalable way than just hogging whatever thought that I had in my mind and just keeping them to myself and basically being cooked by it. So it made sense to externalize this given the surroundings of mine were pretty much rich enough to support my thoughts, right? And I was able to write aggressively, record aggressively, and further expand my consciousness, and in the sense that I was able to probe deeper into some recurring thought patterns and also whatever is definitely important in the moment. And I was also intensively scheduling in the sense that I was focused on optimizing every little bit of time, especially the first 2 years were hyper focused on highly iterative scheduling in the sense that I was very, very, very hyper obnoxious of my time because I was not allowing any little detail to be missed. I was recording everything, I was logging everything. And after doing this for about a year, it is one of my zapping moments of experience where my mind clicked. And it's naive saying that, but you get to see certain patterns externalized, and at the same time when they click internally you get this fusion of, well, let's say revelations, right? So you get these revelations which are much deeper in the sense that you are able to capture them and realize them on a writing as well. So I found writing, logging, coding, programming, of course, coupled with that lifestyle, it definitely was very changing and helpful. And taming your beliefs and also restructuring your beliefs is definitely a whole process, especially if maybe you're changing careers, maybe you're just going out of college and you're starting out in the industry, or just you're continuing college in the sense that you are going for graduate school or other opportunities down the path. And making this toughest decisions in your life puts you in this sometimes existential moments, but at times it's just stressful moments generally, so that you have to make this very calculated decision in the sense that each pathway that you take would lead you to some sort of trade-off that you have to make. So some willingness to sacrifice some some aspects of that path, you know. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience in the sense that I had to make those hard decisions, or as I call them, changing values or settings. And it was definitely also about determining what my story is going to be, what I'm going to portray myself as in whatever platform I engage in. So it was also definitely about figuring out the different settings that could work for me, because it was ultimately a configuration game, and configuring where you're going to be located, where you're going to base yourself in, is definitely a very important part of your life. And I really do believe that in some sense, because it is definitely going to impact the majority, let's say 10 years or 20 years of your life. So these decisions were really difficult to make at first, because at first I wasn't based in the US. It was a totally out of reach environment. I discarded that idea for a long time because I felt like coming to the US was ghetto-ish. I don't want to add this in the video, but US was basically the country I hated for the sake of some reasons I would mention and maybe in the future. But I was just against US's monetary policy, and I was majorly part of the decentralized space, trying to push decentralization and that, because US wasn't supportive at the time as well. I wasn't really looking forward to being in the US in general. But hey, for some reason, US kind of knows how to pull people in, and I got reeled in. I got fished in, literally. And it was a coincidence in some sense, but at the same time, it's also calculated, and I never go in without making that calculated decision, because you have to make that initial analysis until just before you reach that paralysis stage. Just stop. But I do that often, and after doing that hefty amount of research, where I really focused on the values and the culture that I wanted to promote in myself, I aggressively went in execution mode. And in execution mode is just no ears to anything that interrupts or deters that process, unless it adds more to that process or it kind of amplifies it. So that's the whole strategy I took for the first couple of years, and I was just on the final year of second year now, and definitely I have gained confidence in a whole lot of areas where I'm able to showcase and portray myself without the need for a whole lot of scaffolding. Scaffolding, I mean, in the sense that I literally went meta, in the sense that not the company, but going as much wide as I can, so that I could get a very, very huge breadth of exposure, in the sense that I didn't wanna. So the moment, like when you enter the States, you have this 0 to 1 experience, where you go from 0 or baseline, you enter the States for whatever reasons, and you have this 1 where you're completely set up, you are you're well equipped, in the sense that you have the right tools, resources, people around you, so that you could execute your ideas. So I did this in a non-friendly, not really socializable way. I wasn't really socializing a lot. I wish I had, but it made sense at the time, and it just, my introvertedness just took over, and I didn't really mind about being introverted. And somehow, even though I'm actually an ambivert, who like at times get excited about going out, but that at that point I had to lock in and focus on just pushing my goals further, because all those years I had left my goals, plans open-ended, in the sense that I didn't really get the chance to execute or get them to the finish line, and I wasn't really able to finally put them at the table and see that finished result or see that prototype. It was intentional because I knew the environment I was in was quite limited in a lot of ways. So the only way that I had to do was spread out and maximize my chances of success. And it kind of worked and didn't work at the same time, which is very naive of me, in the sense that I could have focused on one specific niche area, which definitely could have helped as well, because having a really highly specialized set of skills is definitely going to be important, especially if you come to the States. Because, for example, if you're going to be a software engineer focused in that area, mastering one specific language specifically is definitely going to be the name of the game. Because, or if you have a high, deep expertise in one area, that definitely is going to help you stand out, rather than someone who knows a bunch of 20 programming languages, which ironically could have been me. But it definitely helps you in the sense that it will allow you push further and penetrate easily in the market. It's like having a sharp knife and a dull knife. That's the analogy I can give for you. So similar thing for anyone who's probably coming to the States, in the sense that if you don't have some expertise around some niche area, if you're not outstanding, not in the sense that being smart, but if you have this niche information that you could be called for or be demanded for, then that definitely helps you fill the gap very quickly and oil the US economic machine much easily. So that whole determining of settings, determining that configuration, where should I live? When you ask around your friends, everybody's going to be like, oh wait, you could live in California, you could live in New York, you could live in, I don't know, DC, whatever, Texas. But people around me at the time were also new. So asking, freshers, like who are just new to the whole American land, is not the go-to. But I just, you do this, you inquire, you ask your friends just to get their insights, like their perspectives of what the world out there look like, even though we're kind of siloed in a very limited city or state at the time. So I was aware of this. So I don't know why I intentionally do this. Maybe it's a bad thing or a good thing. I do this intensive research, which is kind of before I join the game. I do this intensive research, which is my thing, my culture, that what I'm used to. I do this intensive research. So I knew a lot about the environment I was in. I try to set my expectations as much as I can before I get in the game, basically, right? But there are people who hasn't set the right expectations, and it's all about managing expectations, right? You try to manage expectations in all directions, and yet you see people lacking in a lot of ways. And for some reason, this was a culture shock, in the sense that I wasn't used to, I tried to hesitate to give, nudges, because people want to be controlling of their own, whatever path they're going to take. But I tried to give advice. But Not really, because I took on the introverted route, pretty conservative, because I know what is eventually going to happen. I know nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but it made sense to hold back a bit. And it was time for me to go deep, go explore my core, find all possible flows. And it was not a good experience because it was intensely kind of, it was not a pleasant experience anyways, because it was a bit self-sabotaging at times. And you get to see your self through that introspection, and a whole lot of that gave me a deep insight into myself. So it was a whole about, even though it's never about yourselves, but or even though it's never about yourself, you try to make it about yourself so that you could get the best outcome. So intensively focused on myself, which is good, and didn't really become aggressive and just became flamboyant and went around or went crazy with the fact that I was in America. But I enjoyed the moment as little as I can, which is strange, I know, but I should have, maybe. But after that, after, doing this intensive, because it really determines, so one other thing is, it's not really about the knowledge that drives here. It's capital, but you need knowledge to generate capital. That's the catch here. And it's this cyclical dependency between knowledge and capital here, where the more you know, the more you earn, of course. But most people prefer kind of swap the positions of the two and kind of prioritize money, which makes sense. America, capitalism. You are trying to maximize your gains, you're trying to maximize your time, and basically it's all about performance, managing that performative state and everything. And yet, most people often miss the right cue or the right signal that they should focus on. It's generating more and more, not money, information. And if you're not if you're not a generator of information and just a consumer of information in the States, you're basically at negative cash flow, where even though you're not seeing money getting out of your bank account, technically you are losing in the long run, because it's quite an asymmetric influence game that just exists out here, that you have to focus on actually pushing yourself out there and presenting yourself out there on platforms like this, or whatever platform you're just seeing me on. So you have to replicate yourself. You just don't have to be a single person. So this part of the whole thing wasn't my forte. I was just more of a private person. I was very reserved. I wasn't really looking forward to pushing myself out there. But at some point, hey, why shouldn't I try new things? But one thing that I did actually was, I was trying to externalize myself in a company set where I focused on externalizing my ideas, enclosing them within a company, and then pushing that further. That I practiced often. So that is also doable, in case you don't want to push out your personal branding, in case you don't want to focus on pushing yourself out there, you could also create these entities, which are called companies, and then push them as a sort of way to push your ideas, beliefs further. So that's also one possible route. Either way though, you have to be a producer of information. That's one of the core realizations that you will have, especially if you're going to be participating in the economy. Basically, the feeling that you have when you come to the States is that everybody's part of the game, and yet you're kind of singled out. So you have to find a market, a niche market that you could shine on, where you have an explicit edge over the market, rather than a market where you don't have quite the edge off. So what do I mean by edge? Edge is, well, it gets you edgy at times, gets you a little bit crazy at times, but you have to find that sharp knife where you can cut deep. So you got to be careful with that knife though, because the edge, like the areas where you think opportunities are, could also be areas where, you know, the predators could be lurking. So you got to be very cautious in having this dynamism, but at the same time you have this static attitude where you plan for things ahead, schedule for things ahead before going dynamic. So I'm speaking about generics here simply because I could spot more anecdotes or personal experiences that I went through, but it was all in my head. I'm just kidding. It was not all in my head. I got it out. I wrote it down in papers, and I was able to experience life in basically my computer. So being plugged into my computer for a year or two gives you a whole level of zapped experience where your mind is wired to a whole new level, a whole another level, and which I'm grateful for. So finalizing this video, I would say that I was able to configure and try out multiple settings because it was the most important thing to do. If you are going through that similar process where you're trying to go from 0 to 1 in any setting, you generally have to do this intense research. And these days, you can pretty much do it by yourself or with a group of people or friends. I chose to do it by myself because I was pretty much self-reliant and I was confident in actually achieving whatever I set out for. You could also choose a group of people who roam with you so that you could basically benefit a lot from the group execution effort. So it really depends on your mechanics and how you would deal with, how you would work with people, because also that attitude really matters and everything. But anyways, I've been yapping for about 15 minutes now. I think I could call it here, but I'll be making more videos. Just let me know if I need to make some more videos and possibly help you realize some things that I realized along the journey so that you could realize some things better. And also I'll be, if you want to feel like you want to talk about engineering, programming and other topics, feel free to reach out, let me know in the comments so that I could better help you with the whole process. So, yep. See you.